Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, January the 6th, around 10 a.m. And this is my first hike of 2019. So I thought I'd start the year off by hiking the Mount Mitchell Trail, sometimes proclaimed one of the toughest hikes in the Southeast and in the North Carolina mountains. I've actually done this before, twice, and I can tell you it's not even close to being the toughest hike in the North Carolina mountains. It's not even the toughest hike in the Black Mountains. I think almost every long trail in the Black Mountains is just as tough as this, if not tougher, especially the Colbert Ridge Trail, the Woody Ridge Trail, and the Black Mountain Crest Trail. But it is still a formidable hike with an elevation change of around 3,700 feet from the Black Mountain Campground and the South Toe River to the top of Mount Mitchell at 6,684 feet, making it the highest peak east of the Mississippi River. I last did this hike in January of 2015, basically 4 years ago to the day, give or take a few days. And that was before I started doing long videos like this. So I thought I'd come back out here with beautiful weather and not too much trail traffic and re-hike it, see if I can do any updates of pictures or directions on hiking upward. And also upload a Mount Mitchell Trail video, which I'm sure is going to get a lot of hits. It's one of those trails in North Carolina that is searched for all the time. But actually the real reason I'm hiking it is because I'm a little bit pissed off at the North Carolina High Peaks Trail Association, otherwise a great nonprofit organization that maintains almost all the trails in the Black Mountains, Great Craggy Mountains, and other nearby peaks and trails. The reason I'm pissed off is because a few weeks ago they announced the Black Mountains Challenge, which is hiking all of the trail miles in the Black Mountains. And I thought, wow, this is great. This is kind of like a much smaller scale version of the Pisgah 400 and the Smokies 900, much more manageable for me since there's only 67 trail miles in the Black Mountains, and I've done about 80% of them already. What do you know, in the fine print, you must have begun the challenge after January 1st, 2018. No time limit after that, just a time start. And I have not hiked in the Black Mountains, surprisingly, in the last year, which means in order to do this challenge I thought would be relatively easy, I have to re-hike everything. So I'm kind of doing this out of spite. I have a plan to do at least 4 trails today, maybe 5 or 6, depending on how fast I go, just to try to finish this whole challenge within a year. Because if they didn't have that time start date, I could have finished it with 2 hikes. So I'm gonna get that patch NC High Peaks. Anyways, I've been climbing a few hundred feet already out of the Black Mountain Campground, trying to warm up as quickly as possible because it was a lot colder than I expected this morning. Yesterday I was gonna hike, but there was a high wind warning with 30 to 50 mile an hour winds after a snowstorm hit the top and wind chills in the teens. So I thought, let's just put it off a day. The wind's gonna be much more manageable, 10 to 20 miles an hour once I get higher up. And the temperatures are gonna be wonderful, between 45 and 50 degrees, even near the top. But it starts off cold. So I'm just gonna keep climbing, and hopefully my fingers aren't numb in a few minutes. the first 800 or so feet of elevation change passes through Hardwood Forest with some impressive trees scattered throughout. Occasionally you'll pass by an enormous old growth tulip poplar like this one, about 4 feet in diameter. I passed another one of similar size, a few switchbacks down the trail. But actually in some of the more remote coves of the Black Mountains that are trailless or just have old forest roads, such as the Middle Creek watershed, have a really impressive old growth forests that you won't find in many other places in North Carolina. Something to consider if you want to explore some of the remote off-trail creeks of the Black Mountains. You'll probably find some really impressive trees in there. I explored that unofficial side trail along Little Mountain that I've known about for years and never checked out before now. It is an easy to follow trail that leads to an overlook I'm standing on right now. There's even a wooden sign below here that says Outlook, and the trail actually continues down Little Mountain, probably all the way down to a forest road near the South Toe River. The views aren't as good as I remembered from people's pictures. You get a pretty good view to the north of the South Toe River Valley and the Roan Highlands, and a decent view of the Black Mountains around Big Tom Gap. Actually, the coolest thing right now is something that I can hear. If you can hear that roar, I'm going to pause for a second. It may sound like wind is rushing down from the crest down into the valley, but that's actually the audible roar of both Rock Creek and Thie Creek, which run parallel to each other. Rock Creek originates up here, and Thie Creek originates up here just below the Big Tom Gap Trail. This is Maple Camp Bald right up here. Both of these creeks have a lot of significant waterfalls completely off trail that have recently been explored by quite a few people. Some of these waterfalls are recently named, but the locals have known about them for many years. Thie Creek is the more impressive of the two, judging by the pictures I've seen, and it has countless waterfalls, at least 11 or 12, some of them over 100 feet. And you can actually see the highest waterfall, which is just below the Buncombe Horse Range Trail, below Big Tom Gap. And I'm not sure if you can see, I'm going to point it out. There's a white streak right around here. Might be too small to see. That's a 100-foot waterfall or more over bare rocks just below the Big Tom Gap Trail junction. From there, Thie Creek drops into this really rugged S-shaped gorge and then runs parallel to Rock Creek before joining it down here. And I'd love to do both of these creeks next summer. They require very difficult all-day bushwhacks. Here's the map for the region. This is the only map you should be using for the Black Mountains. National Geographic produces the popular Linville Gorge Mount Mitchell Trail map, but that's a really inadequate map for both Linville Gorge and the Black Mountains because of its 1 in 75,000 scale. There are a ton of unmarked forest roads and lots of confusing trail junctions in both of these areas, so you should really be using the Forest Service South Toe River Mount Mitchell Big Ivy Trail map. This has a 1 in 24,000 scale and covers everything in the Black Mountains, Great Craggy Mountains, and the immediate surrounding areas. The other side of the map is the west side of the Black Mountains and the Great Craggy Mountains. The east side covers the main crest of the Black Mountains, the South Toe River Valley, and some of the Blue Ridge Parkway in the area. My hike is basically from here to here, but with some deviations from the typical Mount Mitchell climb. It begins at the parking symbol for the Black Mountain Campground and then picks up 440, 190, which is the Mountain Sea Trail and Mount Mitchell Trail. Currently, I'm standing around here on Little Mountain. Soon I will be at the intersection with the Higgins Bald Ground Trail. The Mountain Sea Trail actually follows this. It's labeled incorrectly on this map. It's actually a good thing the Mountain Sea Trail follows that trail, because otherwise it'd probably be abandoned in no time. It kind of forces MST hikers to use that trail. Otherwise, your typical hiker who's hiking the Mount Mitchell Trail might just completely avoid it. My plan is to go up the Mount Mitchell Trail and then down the Higgins Bald Ground Trail on the way back. That's pretty standard for a lot of people who hike up to Mount Mitchell. Once I get to Commissary Hill, I'm going to follow the Mount Mitchell Trail into the state park. Everything on the east side is Pisgah National Forest, but the state park basically has the summits of the Black Mountains, in the central Black Mountains at least. I'm going to do a short out and back on the Balsam Nature Trail to knock that one out, and then follow the Mount Mitchell Trail up to the observation tower. And then to knock out another trail, I'm going to follow the Old Mitchell Trail to the Camp Alice Trail, and then follow the Buncombe Horse Range Trail back to Commissary Hill, where I'll go back down to the campground. If I have time, I was thinking about doing the Devil's Den Nature Trail to knock that one out. If I'm making really good time and feeling ambitious, I could try doing the River Loop Trail and the Set Rock Creek Falls Trail. That would be an extra 3.5, 4 miles, so I'd have to be making great time, and it's still the middle of winter, so I don't have too much daylight to work with. But this looks like everything I just listed to you, including Devil's Den Nature Trail. It's probably around 13.5 miles of hiking. I'm above 5,200 feet, and the forest has transitioned to conifers, mainly large spruce and fir. This is also the Microburst section of the trail, a strong microburst, 70, 80 mile an hour winds or even higher. Hit this over a decade ago and basically flattened everything on a narrow track down this slope. You can see how there's a ton of downed logs all over the place. And it's been long enough that you can see in its place, there's a ton of really young, skinny spruce and fir trees rising up out of the ground. It's a pretty cool section, a reminder of what can happen if a severe storm hits in the mountains. You do not want to be here when that happens. It is just past noon, and I'm on the Powerline section of the Mount Mitchell Trail. This is the final 400-foot climb to Commissary Hill before entering the state park. The trail switchbacks up this huge power line cut, which provides electricity to all of the buildings at the top of Mount Mitchell State Park. You can see there's a little bit of snow lingering on the slopes here, but no ice. When I did this 4 years ago, the ice began below this, probably about half a mile before this, and the trails were iced over all the way to the summit, which is called monorail, when sheets of ice build up over time in the winter from freeze-thaw cycles. And it's a good thing that there's no ice, because I threw my yak tracks in the car and forgot to throw them in my pack. But I've been monitoring the weather at these high elevations the past week or so, and it's been above freezing at the summit of Mount Mitchell for almost the entire week, other than this brief snowfall. So I wasn't too worried about ice. It's been a relatively modest winter in terms of temperatures. But generally, if you're hiking this in January or February, you should really bring some shoe traction devices, because the final 2 miles, especially the Mount Mitchell Trail inside the state park, which is a really dense canopy of spruce fir and very muddy, that's ripe for long-lasting monorail and can be really slow going if you don't have any ice traction. When I did this 4 years ago, I was one of the only people on the trail that had it, and I just kept passing right by lots of groups of hikers who had a really tough time getting around those big sheets of ice. So I highly recommend some sort of mild traction device, nothing fancy, something with coils or round ball type spikes. You don't really need mini crampons or anything with pointy spikes, because a lot of the times you'll also be walking on dry ground, rocks and roots, and it's harder to do that with something like Catula microspikes than it is with coils. I'm doing the out and back on the Balsam Nature Trail on the northeast side of Mount Mitchell, and there's a surprising amount of snow and ice along the trail, more than expected. This is a good time to point out what is a prime example of southern Appalachian spruce fir forests. This is a dense forest consisting of red spruce and Fraser fir, and is a rare forest only found at the highest elevations in the southeastern Appalachian Mountains. The Central Black Mountains probably have one of the best clusters of southern Appalachian spruce fir forests. I would say the best are 3 distinct areas of Great Smoky Mountains National Park: the Clingman's Dome, Mount Collins area, the Mount LeConte, Mount Kepar area, and the Mount Guyot area. But I'd say the Mount Mitchell to Balsam Cone and Cattail Peak section is second best to the Smokies. Silo Knob is also a really good area, at least on the north side of the peak. And then I'd say Richland Balsam is close behind. But the similar forest at Grandfather Mountain, Roan Mountain, and the other peaks, high peaks of the Plot Balsams and Great Balsam Mountains, these stands of forest are just a lot smaller. And it's just because those elevations are a little bit lower than you see here in the Smokies. Generally, those are around 6,000, 6,200 feet. But it's just freaking beautiful. Very calm, except for the wind, with just amazing snow coverage. I've never seen this much snow up here, at least in this area of Mount Mitchell. The moment you've all been waiting for. Mount Mitchell, 6,684 feet, the highest peak in North Carolina, and the highest peak east of the Mississippi River. I waited out that group for over 20 minutes, patiently eating. They finally left, and now I have Mount Mitchell to myself, which is a rarity. This is why you hike it in the middle of winter when the state park and Blue Ridge Parkway are closed. The other reason is oftentimes you'll have crystal clear skies, which provide 100-mile views in every direction. I could spend about 10 minutes telling you everything I can see, but I won't. That would probably bore you to death. I will start off by not doing too much with the south direction. These towers are on Clingman's Peak. These two peaks are Pinnacle and Graybeard of the Middle Mountain Massif, and further south across the Swannanoa Valley are the Hickory Nut Mountains. Beginning with the southwest direction, you have a great view of three of the biggest mountain ranges in the state. The Great Balsams are on the left, the smaller Plot Balsam Range is dead center, and the Great Smoky Mountains are right here, ending at Mount Camerer with that drop off right there. So let me zoom in a little so you can see those a little better. Somewhere in front of Guyot and Mount Sterling, somewhere around here, are the highest peaks of the Newfound Mountains, including Crabtree Bald. Now those are above 5,000 feet, but they're nothing compared to the Great Smokies in the distance. Due west across the Cane River Valley, the pointy peak is Big Butt, and then the Black Mountains kind of drop off from there. Behind that is the French Broad River Valley and Corridor, which leads to hot springs somewhere around here, which are also the lowest elevations of the Bald Mountains. They get bigger as you head due west, a little bit north, rising up to Camp Creek Bald and other peaks of the Shunt and Laurel backcountry. And after I-26, they get even bigger, with Big Bald, the highest peak in the range, and Little Bald, the second highest peak in the range, which I hiked a couple months ago. Let's go back up to the top, where you'll get better views to the north and east. There's also plaques that help you identify a lot of the closer peaks here, but you guys know me, I don't need that. This view due north of the Black Mountains is actually not as good as the walkway below, so I'll show you that later. But I will point out, this is Mount Craig, that is Balsam Cone, that is Maple Camp Bald, and the pointy one is Silo Knob. The broad ridge on the left is Unica Mountain, which I also hiked a couple months ago. In the distant north, to the right of the Black Mountains, are the Roan Highlands. Roan Mountain is on the left. This is Grassy Ridge Bald, and it drops down towards Hump Mountain right here. And the southern Unica Mountains end at Spruce Pine. You can see that massive mica or kaolin mine that is below Big Bald, another Big Bald. There's a lot of those. In the northeast, get a fantastic view of Grandfather Mountain, really the biggest peak in this direction. You also get excellent views of some of the ski mountains, including Beach Mountain on the left, and I can see Sugar Mountain, but you probably can't because the bigger peaks in the distance here. That is Snake Mountain on the left and Elk Knob on the right. And you can even see the two highest peaks in Virginia. This is White Top Mountain, and this is Mount Rogers. Really awesome views from here. You get super long distance views on clear winter days. Can't even see the screen right now because of the brightness, but I am looking at Linville Gorge. On the left is Hawksbill Mountain. On the right is Table Rock Mountain. And then this cliff line is the Chimneys and Short Off Mountain. And these cliffs right here are Bald Knob and Dobson Knob, which I hiked many years ago when I first started putting hikes on Hiking Upward. To the east there, you can see that water. That is Lake James near Morganton, North Carolina. And the peaks to the southeast, beyond Lake James, are the South Mountains. And actually the craziest thing that I'm seeing here that I've never seen before, I'm not gonna be able, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera. I'll zoom in a little bit more, but I am very confident that these peaks, you can see them up to the right of Table Rock, straight ahead. I'm pretty sure those are the Soartown Mountains. I can pick out Soartown Mountain, Moore's Knob, and Cook's Wall dead ahead. And the crazier thing is I see peaks to the right of that. And the only thing I can think of are those are the Uwharrie Mountains near me. That's how amazing the views are from here. It is crazy. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, here's the South Mountains. To the right of the biggest peak is the Charlotte skyline. And to the right of that, just above this knob, is Crowder's Mountain and the pinnacle in Crowder's Mountain State Park. I mean, this is insane, the views you're getting today. Almost finished with the Camp Alice Trail. I've never done this before because I've always skipped by it, either using the Old Mitchell Trail or Mount Mitchell Trail. And boy, this trail's rough. This honestly might be the roughest, most rugged trail in the park. It's only about a half mile from the Commissary Ridge Trail to the Old Mitchell Trail, but it seriously is just a continuous descent over massive rocks and roots all the way down. Really slippery today. It is rough. On the Commissary Ridge Trail, it's a really nice section. It's just like the Buncombe Horse Range Trail towards Maple Camp Bald, but a little bit easier to access. Pretty wet today. I am way behind schedule. It's around 3:45. Still got 4.5 miles to go. And the main reason is I spent about an hour up at Mount Mitchell. It was just so beautiful. But, you know, just waiting for some pictures, some video, while the other groups of people left. I think it was worth it, but I'm not going to be able to do as many trails today as I thought I would get to. The campsite's at Commissary Hill, right beside the Mount Mitchell Trail Junction. This is a fantastic area to camp, but it can get a little crowded on summer weekends. But it lies just outside of the state park, and backcountry camping is only allowed in one location in the state park off the Old Mitchell Trail, and I think there's only 7 or 9 sites in total. So backpacking is at a premium around here. You have to go just outside of the state park boundary to find good campsites, and this is one of them. The other popular one is Deep Gap, and the lesser used ones are around Maple Camp Bald. It is 5:40 p.m. and daylight is quickly fading. I'm not exactly finished with the hike, but I can hear the South Toe River raging below. I think I have just under 3/4 of a mile left, maybe about 15 to 20 minutes of hiking, so I'm almost done. In total, I've been hiking around 8 hours today, which is a lot. It's a lot longer than I expected. My GPS is currently reading 12.5 miles, so it's going to be just over 13 miles. I'm unfortunately not going to get to the other nature trails around the Black Mountain Campground as I intended, but if I didn't do the initial side trip going up and spend an hour at Mount Mitchell, I probably would have had an hour of daylight to spare to do at least one of those side trips. But it's okay because they're basically 3 trails emanating from this campground, and if you do them altogether, it's probably 4.5 to 5 miles. So that's just a half a day hike, so I can combine it another time with another hike in the area. I just, wanted to knock out as much as possible. But otherwise, it was a fantastic hike. I'm glad I got back to the Black Mountains after about 15 months away. And I'm glad I got to do the Mount Mitchell Trail once again. These were probably, as I said earlier, the best views I've gotten from Mount Mitchell, except the glaring sun to the south. Otherwise, the visibility was incredible. I don't think I've seen Mount Rogers and White Top Mountain before, and I am dead certain I haven't spotted the Soratown Mountains, I don't know, like 100 miles to the east. And then there was the Charlotte skyline and Crowders and the Pinnacle in Crowders Mountain State Park. So really awesome day to go up there. And I'm really glad I actually did this trail instead of something that's a little flatter, because there was a crap ton of snowmelt and rainwater coming down the slopes everywhere. And the short stints that I had on the flat trails of Commissary Ridge and Buncombe Horse Range Trail, those trails were filled with standing water and mud. And it would have been a miserable day doing a lot of miles of that. So I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely went really into showing you the peaks and mountain ranges of North Carolina. I think that segment was over 6 minutes long, but at least it wasn't 10 minutes. And I'm going to finish up and watch the second playoff game. And hopefully I'll get a spot at Old Hickory Brewery and Tavern. So until next time, see you later.